By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what a spike is, when to use it, how to use it, and should you estimate it or not. Sometimes a user story is too large or too complex, maybe an implementation of a new technology, a third-party tool, and as a result, the team can't estimate it. And that's the problem. We can't take the story in the next sprint. We can't start development because the story is simply not ready. We don't have all the requirements. And even if we ignore this part, what if a story is so complex that we can't finish the sprint? We can't meet the sprint goal because it takes one additional month to do. To prevent this, it's better to have a time-boxed research, exploration, to learn more about this story, about this integration, this new technology, to find possible solutions. And that's a spike. A spike is an investment made by the product owner to find out what needs to be built and how to build it prior to actually building the story. Making the story estimable. The product owner allocates a little bit of a team's capacity now ahead of when the story needs to be delivered so that we can do this research now, this spike now, so that when it's time to start the development, we already know what to do. There's quite a few scenarios where using a spike would be recommended. First, we did the backlog refinement, but the development team still feel that there's quite a lot of uncertainties around a user story. We can't estimate it. Second, there's quite a lot of solutions on how to build the user story, and we can't pick. We need some further research to really nail down which solution is the best. Third, we don't quite know if what we decided, the solution that we decided on how to build this user story would produce the expected result. Fourth, the team has absolutely no idea on how to approach a problem. There's two types of spikes, functional and technical. Let's start with the technical one. It's the simple one. It's in the name. It's related to technology. It's when the team needs to do more research on a new technology, as an example, to know if we can even build the solution. Functional spikes are used when there's a lot of uncertainties around how the user would interact with what we are trying to build. As an example, maybe we are trying to build a VR set, new technology, new design, and we want to get the feedback from the user. So we build a prototype to get this feedback. We give a user, and then we can see how the user interacts with this new technology or new design. Like any other user story, a spike also needs to meet all the acceptance criteria required in order to get that status of done. We usually ensure also that a spike is estimable. We need to be able to allocate a certain amount of hours to time box that event. More on this later. We also ensure that the spike is demonstrable. We need to be able to demonstrate the output of a spike to the team. A spike should be acceptable, needs to go through all the acceptance criteria like any other story to get the status of done by the product owner. When a spike is completed with or without the time box expiring, there's two options. First, the development team, they have enough information to be able to estimate the story, to add subtasks to the story, to break the story down into smaller chunks, smaller user stories. Basically, we can take the story in the next sprint planning and start working on it, if ever the story is still a priority. Second option, we weren't able to eliminate all the uncertainties around this user story. We are still unsure on how to build this. We can't estimate the user story. So it's not recommended to take the story in the next sprint planning. Now, it's time for a big question. Should you estimate or not spikes? There's quite a lot of debate in the Agile world around this question. I'm going to share my opinion and give you the pros and cons of each options. And then you can pick the one that suits you the best. But it doesn't matter what type of option you pick, whether estimating it or not, you still need to time box the event. Extremely important. Let's start with the reasons why you need to estimate spikes. Let's assume here that you're estimating in story points. Spikes need to be estimated because they require actual effort in the sprint. They are a task like any other task or user story in the sprint, and they require effort. And every effort given in the sprint towards the sprint goal needs to be visible on the board, needs to be visible somewhere, and not making it visible. If ever there's a lot of spikes in the sprint, will drastically crash the velocity of a team, and you might not know where the problem comes from. Why is the velocity of a team suddenly crashing? Spikes also have acceptance criteria. They need to be demonstrated to the team, accepted by the product owner. They bring value to the project. Spikes are simply special, a special type of user story put in the backlog by the product owner, prioritized by the product owner, estimated by the development team, and done in the sprint like any other user story. Now, there's also some reasons not to estimate. The core principle behind all these reasons is that even though a spike as an output that can be demonstrated to the team has acceptance criteria accepted by the product owner, the spike is not shippable. It's not shippable. And one of the core Agile principles is to deliver working software. That's not a spike. A spike is simply the output of a spike, even if we can demonstrate it, is simply gaining information from research, knowing more information about a user story so that we can estimate it, so that we can start development. It's not a shippable product. And if we apply the same logic to estimate both user stories, delivering working software, and spikes answering questions, how do we determine the true value being delivered in the sprint? When you look at the velocity is a combination of working software and answering questions. How do we determine true value? Okay, now my point of view on the all situation and whether to estimate it or not. Do you estimate backlog refinement activities? A question to you. When in the sprint planning, you already know that you're going to do backlog refinement activities in the sprint, right? Do you estimate it? Do you estimate each task? Or do you allocate 10% as recommended for backlog refinement activities? The way I see a spike is simply a glorified version of backlog refinement, a well-rounded version of backlog refinement, because the goal of a backlog refinement is to simply get information on a user story in order to estimate it and actually know how to build it and start the development so that we can pick it in the sprint planning. A spike does exactly the same thing, but a well-rounded way of doing the same thing. So why not consider a spike as a backlog refinement activity, which you don't estimate? You don't estimate it. That's my simple answer to the question. Don't estimate spikes. Just consider them as backlog refinement activities. You already allocate 10% to the sprint to these activities. Doesn't mean that you don't need to time box the event. Extremely important. You should be time boxing the event, but don't estimate it. Like most things in Agile, there's not a right answer on how to handle spikes. Really depends on your context, your organization, your team. But which option resonated more with you? Which option will you pick? Leave down a comment. I'm really interested in knowing the answer. Which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile Scrum personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now. And I'll see you in a few seconds.